Hey, what's up guys? My name is Jared, and today we're going to talk about in-camera transitions. Let's go. In-camera transitions. How do we do them? When do we do them? Why do we do them? When do we not do them? That's what we're going to talk about today. First off, the goal. The goal of these transitions isn't to put on a show. It's to simply go from point A to point B in a seamless manner. I also don't let the transitions get in the way of the edit. They shouldn't get in the way of the edit at all. We do these transitions by either matching up a similar motion or a similar object inside the frame, and it's done through pacing. So with video editing, I like to think of video editing as like a roller coaster. See, you're not always upside down. Sometimes it builds and it goes down, and then sometimes you get psyched out, and it's a roller coaster ride. It should be paced gently, and then it should build up and do all the things that a roller coaster would do. And the key to this is really music. Music plays a vital role in the pacing of a video and how the edit is portrayed and how the edit is done. Example of this. If I were making an edit right now, and say I were using a song that had a lot of building in it, it was building towards a drop or a break or something, I would start out with probably a few static shots. And then as the music built, the pace of the video and the visual would also build with it, and eventually it would be pretty fast. That's the whole idea. So the first question is, how do we shoot it? How do we go about making something like this? The first tip I have for you guys today is create motion. This is why you'll see it in a lot of my videos. The camera's panning one way, sliding another, it's going forward, it's going backward, it's moving in some direction. And a few of the things I like to use is, I like to use first foreground. A lot of foreground, so if you put foreground in front of the image, if you put an object in front of the image and move it away, it'll appear like there's more motion happening than there really is. And framing, how you frame things is also going to determine how it appears that the camera is moving. Second thing, shoot twice. When I say shoot twice, I don't mean shoot the exact same thing more than once. I mean shoot what you need and then shoot creative things on top of that. For instance, say I'm shooting this camera lens right here, okay? I'm gonna get a few stationary shots of the lens. I'll probably get one rotating around it. Those are the shots I need for the edit to work, and those are the shots that most people get. However, after I get those shots, I'm gonna think about doing something creative. I'm gonna think about turning my camera with the lens, or putting the lens on something, or something else creative. That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of shooting twice, is you shoot the footage you need and then shoot the footage that you might want to play with later in the edit. See, you're never going to create a creative video if you never have creative footage, and this is why a lot of videographers' videos always look the exact same. They always look the same because you get in the routine of shooting the exact same things over and over, and you forget the creativity and you forget to try new things. This provides options in the edit, and that is what I love. I love to have options in the edit so much more than trying to get this perfect shot. Maybe you go out and try to get this creative shot and it has a great idea in your mind, but you get back to the computer and it just doesn't work. See, this is why you shoot the basic stuff, the sliding shots, the normal shots that you need just in case something doesn't work, and then you're always going to be covered. You'll always be all right. And these are just a few things to remember when out shooting, but we're going to get into the actual techniques that me and a lot of other people use. The first thing, the whip pan. The whip pan happens when you point your camera at a subject and you whip it one direction, and then you take a second shot and you continue that motion, that same direction, to continue the movement, and then you stop on a new subject. That's how traditionally a whip pan is done. You can do it vertically, you can do it diagonally, really any direction you want to. There's a lot of creativity with this. I've done a lot of like spinning type things with this. I think it's super important to remember with the whip pan that the motion needs to continue. And I think that's like the point of the whip pan, the point of a good whip pan. A lot of the time people look at an object and then they'll whip to another object and then whip to another one and to another one and to another one. And it just seems jerky, and there's no flow. There's no pacing in that. But when you whip pan, you should be sliding across a subject, and then as you slide, you whip at the end, and then you continue the whip and continue sliding, and then you whip up. And so the whip it's not a quick thing you do, it's a gradual thing you ease into and ease out of. And I think that really helps with a whip pan. The next thing is foreground transitions. When it comes to these transitions, I think it's important that the motion continues. A lot of the time you'll see someone go into an object and then come out of an object, and it doesn't make a lot of sense in my head. I just don't get it. Versus if you're going into an object and out of an object, like you're going through something, it makes a lot more sense in my head. So if I go into the left, I want to come out to the right, versus if you go to the left into something and then you come back out. Like, what was the point of going that way in the first place? Does that make sense? So I think, remember when doing foreground transitions, remember that the motion continues, that you go through it, through the object, or you go through it this way, if that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So those are the major techniques that I use and that I wanted to talk about in this video. But let's talk about some little tips and some little techniques that we often use to make these transitions more seamless, more clean. The first thing is speed ramps. Speed ramps are pretty self-explanatory, and if you've watched YouTube at all, if you've seen any type of YouTube content created, you've seen speed ramps. This is when a video speeds up on the unimportant part or the in-between section of an edit and slows down on the important part. So you're recording an object and then it speeds up and goes to something else and then slows down for something else and then speeds up for in between. You would do this just by speeding up the end and the start of the transition. I use a lot of speed ramps, and I think speed ramps are super cool, super fun, but don't let them get in the way of the edit, just like anything else, especially when you're starting an edit when the music is slow. It doesn't make sense for something to go fast when the music's slow. Just make sure the mood fits the situation. Tip number 2, crossfade transitions. See, crossfade transitions help masking that little cut in between clips. When I'm talking crossfade transitions, I'm not talking like a day to night transition. I'm talking like a 2 to 4 frame transition at the very end of a clip. This just does a pretty good job on smoothing out that cut, if that makes sense. So they don't have to be long. It's just a little thing you throw in between. You can also throw some motion blur in there if you want to do that. Third thing, color matching. Don't be afraid to keyframe a color change at the end of your videos. This is just a little something, especially if you're a perfectionist, that really cleans up some stuff. You can do this, say for instance, you're going from a warm scene to a cold scene. At the end of the warm scene, keyframe it to change a little cool so it transitions a little better. It just makes more sense. The fourth thing and the last thing is sound design. This is not the least, this might be the greatest of all these tricks. Sound design is key when it comes to creating depth in your video and creating a great atmosphere, a great tone. A few whooshes and a riser is gonna go a long way. Also, I wanna mention with sound design, don't be afraid to use environmental sounds, especially when it makes sense. For instance, if I'm about to see a bird, I think it'd be nice to hear a bird right before I see a bird. It just makes sense in your head. I'm not an expert on sound design at all. There's a lot of people on YouTube who know a lot more about that than I do. I highly recommend checking out JR Alley. He has a lot of work. He's a great sound design artist, and his visuals just are crazy because of the sound design backing up the visuals. And that's pretty much the end of the video. These are the things I wanted to talk about. Just remember, when creating these edits, don't let the transition get in the way of the story. Stories is always going to be king, and it's always going to be most important. These are all little things that I believe can help the filmmaking process, but don't think like this is the right way to do it and there's a wrong way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just here sharing my opinion, sharing what I do, because people really like what I do. And yeah, if you have any questions, drop them below. Otherwise, see you guys on the next one. Peace out.